Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of E2E, or Engineer to Engineer, that 10-minute drill. And today we are meeting with Vyshnavi Namani, and she's a PM on the networking team. And we're going to talk about private IP gateway. So stay tuned. Hi, Vyshnavi.
Hi, Pierre. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? It's been a while.
Definitely. I'm really excited to talk about this. It's something that a lot of our customers have been asking for, and I'm really happy. This past week has been the GA and a lot of great feedback for this feature as well. So I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, as you were mentioning that, like last time we talked about this. Um, But for the people that are listening right now, what exactly did we release this week? Like, I know it's like private IP address or private IP gateway or private application gateway, kind of like merging together. Like, what is it? What's the deal on that?
Before I kind of get into that, I kind of wanted to introduce a little bit about Application Gateway for those who are new to this area.
Okay.
Like Application Gateway itself is like a traffic manager for all your web requests, into your internet requests. It's located on layer 7 of your application layer, and it specifically kind of balances and also routes your requests into the different servers. So think about it like one of the really fun examples that I always think of is like if there's like a limited edition dessert that's only for US customers, and only the top 50 of the US customers can take this. You only want people located in the region of the US to able to access it. So not everyone from other regions are unable to access it. So only specifically routing for US region to a specific storage account or specific IP, only they get redirected to this IP, no one else. So this kind of application gateway is making sure that it balances your traffic so one area doesn't get overwhelmed, and it kind of like also protects your traffic, right? So you want to make sure only the people you're associated with or the entities that you want are coming into that traffic that gets distributed. So all the traffic kind of gets like filtered through some SSL offloading as well as web application firewall. So all your traffic gets filtered, making sure it's secured before it gets routed to all your storage accounts, your IP addresses, VMSs that you want to direct to. So it's kind of like the brain behind all your requests that are happening behind the scenes.
Okay. So you mentioned that the SSL termination is at the gateway.
hmm
So the communication past the gateway on the back end, is that still encrypted and secure?
Definitely. So you can use that encrypted as well with a specific IP address that you choose. That you want one specific IP address to go to another one, or one web app to go to another web app. All of that information in the backend request is also secured, and
Okay.
that kind of leads into the importance of this private IP, right? So like you want to have all the information in your backend, your like all the requests that are coming into the application load balancer. That's one layer of security, and everything that's going into your storage account, that's another layer of security, and that's in the between is where private IP really showcases its best benefits.
Yeah, because like the application gateway that I've used it before, typically it's internet facing, correct?
Exactly.
So now, are you saying like that with the private IP gateway or the private application gateway, so we can have the same functionality but without exposing it to the internet?
Yes, so it has its like own it's all like very private IP itself is very internal only. And so this is very beneficial for those customers that are really looking for like heavy security or heavy compliance heavy and policy heavy. So this is a lot of customers are requiring for this. And it's also kind of also encompasses all your Azure environment into one area. So all your private IP from your private IP and the rest of your Azure ecosystem is all secured under a security layer. For this month, with just public IP, we were using a public IP, anyone is able to access that. And before, we would have to kind of add-on security layers, such as like new SSL offloading or TLS proxy, to kind of hide all of our important or sensitive data into like its own bubble. But now even with the IP is secured, and now everything else above that is also secured.
Is there a way you can show us a little bit of it?
Yeah, let's try it out. So for this is just the Azure portal that you can go into. If you're going into your subscriptions here, the first thing you have to do with the private IP is making sure you register it. It's something that, because it's newly GA'd, it's like this. It's not going to be like this very soon. So make sure you have enabled, like you have registered the feature onto your portal first. And then
Hmm.
you can go into the preview features in the left-hand corner of your subscription, making sure you go ahead and register that new preview feature and just refresh it just for making sure it is official, and then making sure that it's registered. Going into a little bit about the application gateway. So here I kind of made one because it takes a bit time to put everything together on here. So I wanted to kind of show you guys the main important pieces for the private IP. Here on its own, that we can see that it is just the private IP on its own. Um, we So if you look at the front-end configurations, the public, it doesn't need to be required. Beforehand, you would need either just public or you need both. Now it's just a private on in its own. So this is kind of showcasing that it's an entity on its own that no one can access. And here we also have additional WAF security here, so bot protection rules, as well as additional TLS protection here as well.
Okay.
And location here we have is West US. And going into my VNet here, we want to make sure it's also in the same location region that you have acquired, and making sure your subnet is also, you have identified a subnet, you have established the subnet, and making sure your subnet itself as a network policy private endpoint is an NSG. And NSG itself is just like a security rules. Like it kind of routes your rules into a this specific. If you do X, then you do Y. So it's like a enhanced traffic routing rules, and making sure who's coming in and out. It keeps the checks and balances together. So that is like the importance of the network security groups. And here we're gonna kind of showcase the methodology of like input and output with using the network security groups. So let's just go ahead and save this for a subnet. We go into, so here coming back, we have our VNet together, we have a subnet, and we have a private IP. I'm going to go ahead and just copy this because it's going to be useful for later on.
Okay.
And then let's go into our actual NSG. So where we're here, we can actually define what our inbounds are and what our outbounds are. And
Hmm.
then inbounds is thinking them as like inputs and outputs here as well. So go ahead and specify your region. Just give it a quick name. So NSG private IP, and everything else is leave it as default. So you can go ahead and set this as validation. Create.
If we've got our private application gateway that's set up for, and you mentioned the US earlier, and we have resources that are both in East and in West, does that work across region, or do I have to have one application gateway in West and one application gateway in the East?
So it's best to have your VNet and your application gateway in the same region. If in a situation where it is in different regions, you would have to peer those different VNets that you have in the other region as well. And most likely, if you're peering, you'll be using the hub spoke model.
Hmm.
Something that I can definitely, it's actually a very cool use case that I have worked on currently, is we usually use a routing table to connect. So we hop there inside the routing table, you can also use a hop rule. And the main function of this hop rule is you come from the VNet that you're from the source, like source A, for example, is one VNet in a different one region. And then here you can hop to the other VNet and you get that information to another other region using that hop, the next hop. So definitely really good resource to go into. When you create the network security group that you can have access to with security rules, there's already a few default ones that are available to you. So let's see, we have like deny all inbound. So this here is one that's like denies all web access to your private IP. So currently, no one has access to your private IP. And also here we have allow Azure load balancer. So you want to make sure that all your other Azure ecosystem pieces are communicating, right? So Azure ecosystem, as in your VNet, as in your VMs, as in your containers, you want to make sure they're all communicating in a smooth manner. So they're allowing that information to come in. Let's just take now, like going back to that banking example that we talked about, right? Only you want to access your banking information. You want to only access your savings or banking account. So I want to have access to me, who is a source of entity. So let me see if I have my IP address. So I'm going to go ahead and create my own IP address, and then the source, I'm going to leave it alone. So this is my IP address that I'm my system or me as a person representing, and
Yep.
then my port ranges, you can leave it as any, and you can leave the service as HTTP, and then TCP as a protocol that is a security, and then allow. And the priority itself is showcasing how important that is. So I would put this as a pretty high priority because I want to be I want to be the one accessing it the most. You can have other, like, usually if you go to customer service, they probably would have access to it as well, but they're a different priority. They have different way of accessing it. But I want to have me as in my priority number one to access it, allow my IP inbound.
Because the really that's like a NSG or firewall rules.
Mhm.
The higher the or the lower the number of the priority, it's going to be evaluated first,
Yes,
and then you want to be evaluated as so that there's not a risk that another condition lower priority
Mhm.
would actually block you or exclude you.
Exactly. Yeah, I want to be the first one getting into my banking information, and then if there needs to be from other areas, so VNet, Azure Load Balancer, they can also do that. So here, this is gonna be we have, if depending on if you want to extend this use case, going back to that documentation that I have here, it can kind of gives you other examples of what else based on your situation. So here, I have some ideas of, like, you want to only allow import web traffic that has a port of 80, and you want to have all the web traffic that has port 80 in, then this is how you do it. Or this is how you want to deny all inbounds that we have as a default. This is how you do it. And this is how, like, examples on how to actually implement it on your rule itself. So it depends, like, if all of your private IPs all have an 80 port or from HTTPS, you have multiple your you want to access your banking information all over the world. So that means you want to have access to a little bit of different regions as well. So something you might be interested in is port 80. And going into, so we talked about a little bit about inbound rules. So these are things that I'm going into my banking information. Let's go into a little bit of the outbound rules. So imagine that I went into my banking information, changed something, and then I want all of the things that I have changed and stored in a specific audit entry where it's saved and that I can access anytime as well. So if I've made changes to my banking information, now it's going, let's think of it as like it's going into a storage account. So what can I do? So I'm going to go into my source. So I see as my source, the private IP that we have copied a little bit earlier. Can be really helpful to copy and just paste your IP address here. And this is where you want to do that. And you want to go ahead and specify your own IP, port ranges. Let's just leave it all here. And then depending on where the end output is, you can send it to a web app, you can send it to a storage account, or you can send it to a security group. So in this situation, since we're sending it to a storage account, you might most likely want to have a storage account that has an IP as well. So storage account that has mine is 192. So this is the storage account IP address that I've added here. So you can add that there as a destination. So your source is your own private IP, and B is the destination of where you want to enter, have the rest of that information go to, of the changes that you have made in your banking information. And we can go ahead and leave that here. Same with that TCP, HTTPS, TCP, and allow. And now I want to have this priority. Everything that's outbound. So allow backend target storage account. And you can first specify storage account 192. Let's say. Now we have kind of go through what we had just done. So we have seen it as the input as me going into my banking information. That's what we have done in my inbound, where I showcase how my IP went into the private IP. And then we also showcase how after changing something in my banking account info, all that changes are now moved into a storage account where I have access to. And now I showed my IP address information being moved into the storage account. It's kind of like a way to our input and outbound way of moving information and like our own private secure Azure ecosystem. Last thing you want to do in this area is making sure you connect back to the application gateway. I would say this is the most important part. You have done all the work of specifying who has access and who doesn't, and where is it moving to. You want to make sure it goes back into your own application gateway where the traffic is coming from. So if your traffic is coming from the banking information, you want to make sure that your subnet is specified here. Go ahead and save that. Perfect. Now you have a fully configured network security group that you can route more security measures to with inbound and outbound security rules. That's a little bit about the demo. Did you have anything I should go into a little bit more? Any other ideas I should
So
share?
setting up the application gateway itself, the way we've always been doing it, that has not changed.
No.
The only difference is now when you set it up, you can either assign or not an external IP address or an internal IP address. That's really the 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 thing here. That's the big change, is that we can now do it only on the inside. Everything else stays the same in terms of setting up the application gateway. But now with this and NSG, like you just explained, it secures all of the traffic within your private environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
And
I was just making sure I understood it properly.
yeah, thank you for that clarification. Yes. So I know because we previously had like with the public IP, a lot of people needed it's like if there was with the public IP, you have access to the internet because you needed like updates for your Azure, like Azure service updates or Azure like security updates. People will get that information from directly from the public. But now with this private IP, you kind of have all that security measures inside the ecosystem, so you're not touching the internet at all. You kind of moved all that information into a A to B point of contacts.
That's very cool. Very cool. So what's next? Where do we go from here?
Perfect. Yeah, I think Application Gateway is evolving at a very fast speed. So now we just have the private only that's been released last week. Just so what I just demoed is just configured last week, and now moving on to this, we're kind of enhancing this private IP feature with more TLS enhancements, as well as having like private front ends for our container workloads as well.
Okay.
So we're seeing a lot of fast and moving feature service updates with the application gateway, and I can't wait to be just excited and just happy to be a part of it.
Cool. Very cool. And for you watching at home, if you have any questions, stuff like that, make sure to put them in the comments below, and I'll make sure that we get the questions to the right people and get those answered for you. So thank you very much for spending the time with me. And maybe when we have more to say about it, when it evolves a bit more, you can come back and tell us about it.
Yeah, happy to be here. Definitely.
Perfect. All right. Thanks. Thank you for joining us.
Take care.